You just deleted your browser history. Not because someone asked, because someone might. The package arrives and you hide it before they get home. The receipt goes in your pocket, not the shared drawer. The charge shows up as something vague on the statement, something forgettable, something that won't raise questions. And you tell yourself, it's not a big deal. It's your money too. You earned it. You deserve it. But then why does it feel like lying? Why are you rehearsing the excuse before the question even comes? Here's what you need to know before anything else. 42% of people in relationships hide money from their partner. Not cheating, not stealing, just spending in secret. So if this is you, you're not broken. You're not a bad person. You're human. But you're also hiding something. And it's not the receipt. The hiding started small. A coffee you didn't mention. A shirt you said was on sale when it wasn't. A dinner that cost more than you admitted. Little things. Things that didn't seem worth the conversation, worth the judgment, worth the fight. So you just didn't say anything. And it worked. No one noticed. No one cared. So you did it again and again. And now it's not little anymore. Now it's a second account they don't know about. A credit card in your name only. Purchases that disappear into categories they'll never check. And every time you spend, there's this split second where you almost tell them, almost come clean. But you don't. Because the thought of explaining it feels worse than hiding it. But here's what most people get completely wrong about secret spending. They think it's about the object, the shoes, the gadget, the thing in the box you hid before they got home. It's not. It's about something that started long before this relationship, long before this partner, long before the first hidden receipt. When you were a child, you had no control over money. Your parents decided everything. And if you wanted something, you had to justify it. Prove it was necessary. Defend your desire like it was on trial. So you learned something dangerous. That wanting things makes you a burden. That needing approval means you're not free. That the only way to have what you want is to hide it. And now, even in a relationship built on love, even with someone who has never once made you feel controlled, that pattern remains. You don't tell them about the purchase because telling them feels like asking permission. And asking permission feels like being a child again. Psychologists call this autonomy preservation. You're not hiding from your partner. You're hiding from the feeling of being managed. And the more trapped you feel, even when no one is actually trapping you, the more you spend in secret just to prove to yourself that you still exist as an individual. And then there's the fight you're trying to avoid. Not a hypothetical fight. A specific one. The one you've already had. The one where they say, we talked about this. Or, do we really need that right now? Or worse, the silence. The look. The disappointment that makes you feel like someone who broke the rules. So you skip the honesty. Not because you're deceitful, but because you've done the math. And the truth cost more than the secret. At least today. At least right now. So you buy the thing. You hide the evidence. And you tell yourself it's not a big deal. But here's what happens over time. The secret becomes heavier than the purchase. You start tracking what you say. Monitoring what they might notice. Rehearsing your story in case they ask. And the mental weight of maintaining the lie becomes more exhausting than the conversation you were trying to avoid in the first place. And underneath all of that, underneath the autonomy and the conflict and the careful management of what they know and don't know, there's something quieter, something you don't want to look at directly. You're not spending because you need things. You're spending because you need something. And things are easier to buy than feelings are to feel. The moment of purchase gives you something your life isn't giving you right now. A feeling of being worth something, of treating yourself, of having power in a moment where you feel powerless. And when you buy it in secret, that feeling is amplified. Because now it's not just a purchase. It's an act of reclaiming yourself. A private declaration that you matter. That your desires are valid. That you don't need anyone's permission to exist. But the feeling doesn't last. It never lasts. The high fades in minutes. The guilt rushes in, and you're left with something in a box that doesn't fix the void, and a secret that's slowly building a wall inside the relationship you're trying to protect. Because the void you're trying to fill isn't about money, it's about worth, and you cannot buy your way out of feeling unworthy. You can only bury it deeper, under more purchases, more secrets, more distance you didn't mean to create. But here's the part that's hardest to hear. This didn't start with your partner. It started before them, in the home you grew up in, where money was either scarce, stressful, or used as a form of control. Maybe your parents fought about money, and you learned that talking about it only leads to pain. Maybe they shamed you for wanting things, and you learned that desire is something to hide. Maybe they controlled every dollar, and you learned that financial freedom is something you have to take, not ask for. Psychologists call what happens next repetition compulsion. You unconsciously recreate the dynamic you grew up in, not because you want to, not because you've chosen it, but because it's the only pattern your nervous system knows. So now, in a completely different relationship, with a completely different person, you're still the child who learned that money equals conflict. That wanting equals shame. That hiding is how you survive. And the hiding feels like protection. But it's not protecting the relationship. It's protecting the wound. You don't even enjoy it anymore. Not really. The high lasts 5 minutes. Then it's just another thing, another box, another charge, another secret. And the guilt runs underneath every conversation. Every time they talk about saving, every time they mention the future, every time they trust you completely and you're sitting across from them knowing what they don't know. And it's exhausting, living two versions of the truth, remembering what you said and what you didn't, being the responsible one on the outside, while quietly dismantling something real on the inside. Because that's what financial infidelity actually does. It doesn't just hide money, it hides you, the real you, the one with impulses and desires and needs that feel too complicated to explain. And every purchase you hide is a vote that says, I don't think you can handle all of me. And that vote compounds silently every day until the distance between who they think you are and who you actually are becomes impossible to close in a single conversation. So what changes? Not a budget, not a joint account, not a promise that sounds sincere and fades in a week. Something harder than any of those things. Honesty, not the edited version, not the version that makes you look better, the whole thing. About the spending, about the hiding, about the feeling underneath it that has nothing to do with what you bought. And yes, that conversation will be hard. Maybe the hardest one you've ever had. There will be consequences. Trust that needs rebuilding, wounds that need time, the real possibility that they'll look at you differently for a while. But here's what staying silent costs. The slow erosion of something real. The growing distance that physical closeness cannot fix. The quiet knowledge that you are living a lie. And lies don't just hurt relationships. They hurt you. They fracture your sense of self. They teach you at the deepest level that you are someone who cannot be trusted, even by yourself. The next time you're about to buy something and hide it, pause. Not to stop yourself, just to ask one honest question. What am I actually hiding? Because if the answer is the purchase, that's manageable. But if the answer is you, if you're hiding your desires, your impulses, your needs, your whole complicated self, then no budget conversation will fix this. What needs to change is the belief underneath it all. The one that says you have to hide to be loved. That the real you, the one who wants things, who spends impulsively, who sometimes chooses yourself over the plan, is too much. It's not too much. It's just never been given a safe place to exist. And until you stop performing the version of yourself that has it all together, the spending will continue. The hiding will continue. The wall will keep building, one receipt at a time. The secret keeps you. That's the truth at the center of all of this. Not the spending. The secret, isolated, ashamed, living in the gap between who you are and who you're pretending to be. And the only way out of that gap is through it. Not around it, not over it, through the conversation you've been rehearsing in your head for months. Through the truth that feels like it might break everything, because the alternative isn't safety. The alternative is more of this. And you already know what more of this feels like. So here's the only question that matters. Are you going to keep hiding? Or are you finally ready to be known?